Okay, perfect. Then we'll go ahead and get started here. So, welcome everybody to this week's Rocket Pool Community Call. I'm very excited for this one. We have a special guest here joining us. Zero X Princess from NuConstruct is joining us, and I understand that NuConstruct is a company that was founded back in 2020. And it has been working on developing on-chain execution tools, primarily focused on Ethereum. And I think we're going to have Zero X Princess introduce himself and share a little bit more about what they do and what they're building.
Hey Ron, thanks for having me on the call. Very much excited to connect with the Rocketpool community. So yeah, I can share a little bit about our team first, and then go into the details, maybe about the product that we're currently building. So we started as a team in 2020 during the DeFi summer, basically as an MEV arbitrage, DEX arbitrage team, initially. And yeah, we've been working on, I think, on that for 4 years full time. We've grown a bit, made our expertise much better. We worked on multiple EVM chains, but decided to focus on our efforts on Ethereum. I think after 2022, and yeah, we've recently and then we understood that we have developed a lot of expertise and connections in the Ethereum space. And when we thought about how we would like to move forward, as a team, we just decided to bring something to the ecosystem, to make the life of all the participants better, and leverage our understanding of the space, of the MEV space, and transaction supply chain space, and leverage our existing connections and technical expertise that we had, regarding execution clients, PBS in general, consensus clients and all of that, because we've been working very deeply in this and have a modified client for these clients for MEV purposes. But yeah, and we've come to the idea of the product that we now call Tool, which stands for Trustless Order Flow Operations Layer. It basically solves the major pain points that Ethereum users have regarding the transaction supply chain. So what it Tool does is that basically on the high level, it takes the order flow and as a network, and it enables processing of this order flow by operators of the network with whatever private strategies that they have. So extract or DEX arbitrage, do solving, do merging strategies similar to what block builders currently do, and then compose the blocks and send it to the validator, while also having very unique properties. So for example, this kind of pipeline enables end-to-end order flow privacy for all the transactions while having a decentralized network. And also the network has an internal consensus, so it's able to finalize 1-second subslots. And so basically it transforms Ethereum into a 1-second block time chain without any core protocol modifications. So what it does is basically, currently we have 12-second block time, for example, and we split it into 1-second subslots. Then we basically have this order flow in sort of public mempool, but the mempool is public, but all the nodes, they are running the TE hardware, so they're unable to leak any of the transactions before they're actually finalized. And so we have a consensus in the network which finalizes these 1-second subslots one after another and provides sort of soft finality. And once all of the subslots are built, we just sign the block and send it to the validator via the MEV Boost API compatible endpoint. And this endpoint, any node in the network can expose. So basically, it makes it brings us back to the days where full Ethereum nodes and the public mempool was prevalent. And it completely disintermediates the supply chain from any kind of participants that are running these chunky opaque boxes like block builders and relays. And basically, it lowers the participation threshold for all of the participants in the network, like to be very, very low. So anyone can participate in the network, and everything will be as transparent and neutral as possible, basically. And nobody will own any kind of like infrastructure, like crucial infrastructure that would be creating this like bottlenecks and like opaqueness. Yeah. So this is sort of high level of what we do and like how this looks like. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm very excited about this, but maybe let's re-walk through that maybe a little bit slower as we are all trying to grasp for it. Many of the folks listening to the community call here are node operators, right? Many of them home operators where they run their nodes on consumer grade hardware and NUCs and so forth using our kind of integrated software. It uses the traditional, Ethereum execution and consensus layer clients. And so many of us were at ETH Denver, or at least a number of us were at ETH Denver this last year, and there was kind of a big theme about pre-commitments and a number of different protocols kind of coming into the market about creating pre-commitment auctions and so forth. And maybe can you just go through that one more time, perhaps a little bit slower, and tell us, like, I understand you're breaking down the 12-second block into these 1 second, slot times or smaller times and making some commitment for including the transactions in that. But maybe just walk us through it a little bit slower on how it works, and does it integrate with these other kind of tools coming out to the market?
Yep. So basically, on the high level, the network is acting as a relay. I mean, in terms of API. So what we aiming to do is to provide the product that has relatively no technical friction for different participants to onboard. And that's why it is MEV Boost compatible, relay API compatible for the validators. So the only thing that they have to do to onboard is to just include like one line in their config. And it's also compatible with standard RPC methods. So users can like and apps, wallets, etc. They won't have to do any kind of explicit integration, and the only thing that they will have to do is to change the RPC endpoint as well. And and everyone, for everyone, it will be working sort of out of the box. But then how it works exactly is that the network is a peer-to-peer network of TE nodes that are homogeneous. So basically, there are no predefined roles in the network. Everyone runs the same sort of copy of the software, and that's also needed because it's a TE network, and all the nodes like should be running the same software to be able to connect to each other. When an entity like an operator joins the network, the operator I'm talking about here is not the validator, is the operator that wants to process order flow or like expose the RPC or expose the relay API compatible endpoint to the validator. So that would be traders, solvers, searchers, and RPC providers, and other sort of infra providers that would like to work with validators, for example, like maybe Bloxroute or Chainbound, that have, or like ultrasound relay, for example, like people that are already have existing sort of reputation in the space. And so they all might run the node. And when they run the node goes through the TE attestation process. It posts the proof that it runs this specific copy of the software inside a sealed environment. It posts the proof of that on chain. And so basically, as every node does that, it makes it possible for nodes to check for attestations of each other. And that makes it possible to form this sort of permissionless TE network when all peers, they can trust each other because they know that they run the same copy of the software. And it's also in the sealed environment, so they can share all the info that they have, all the transactions, etc., and they wouldn't be leaked outside of the network. When user wants to send transaction or a bundle to the network, it can pick one of the endpoints from any of the nodes that are exposing it. It would be like simple, as I mentioned, like standard RPC compatible endpoint. They're sending their transactions straight to the TE machine. Then the standard exchange format in the network, we call it commitment also. And you can think of it as a bundle, so which is a sequence of transactions with the attached result of the execution on top of the latest state of the latest finalized subslot. And also like different constraints. So for example, if this is the user that wants to have a kickback on their, like from the arbitrage, for example, that their transaction might create, they might set like a recipient address. So there's sort of like there are multiple like kinds of constraints that are possible in this scenario. And so all of this, and when the node wants to introduce some of the transactions to the network, it creates this commitment, which means it executes this bundle of transactions. And other nodes, they shouldn't even re-execute that when they receive it from the network, which basically makes this network linearly scalable, because not a single node has to do any kind of re-execution. And this is what also differentiates it from the existing supply chain, where builders, they have like a pool of bundles, like the queue, and they're like simulating all of them, and they're like merging them, etc. So basically, if you have no matter how many builders do you have, they still like do this redundant job of like checking all of the incoming bundles, because they don't trust the entities that are sending them these bundles. But yeah, and also then we have a consensus in this network. What it does is basically it's a leader-based consensus. So there is a leader in the network picked for every Ethereum slot. What it does is just acts as a beacon to finalize the state of the peer-to-peer network. It does not do any of the execution either. It only takes the commitments from the peer-to-peer network that it sees, squashes like all the non-contentious ones, and also before that it prioritizes them by their value, then squashes them, and that becomes a state of the subslot that is being finalized. And all of the people, all of the order flow providers, whose transactions were finalized, they are receiving the execution result from any node they are able to communicate with. And so this makes it sort of 1 second block time chain, because it's not like pre-confs, for example, where you have to buy something ahead of time, either like a block space or a state lock. There are no explicit fees for users. Like it's free for them. It's just like sending transaction normally and getting execution result after 1 second. And we have confirmed that this sort of thing already, like, it works, and like that's why we're very excited to onboard all of the interested operators on Hudi. So I think a couple of weeks ago, we have onboarded on Hudi with the support of the Ethereum Foundation, with support from other operators such as SSV, RockWayX, Stakely, and also Off-Chain Labs, and we're engaged with many others. We also have the RPC that I mentioned working live. Currently, we are running one node in the network, but soon we'll be scaling and allowing everyone to join the network as well. So everyone will be able to run these nodes and like expose their own RPCs or endpoints to the validators. And we are successfully building 1 second blocks for Ethereum, and we've already built, I think, more than 30K slots and blocks for 30K slots. and so that's very exciting so
Yeah,
far.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating here. Tell me just a little bit more about maybe this opportunity to participate and try it out as a node operator on the Hoodie network. Can you just share a little bit about maybe what software is needed? Does it work as like a sidecar? Are there any hardware requirements? You mentioned a TEE, a trusted execution environment. Does it require a certain chip that runs some code on it, like SGX or something like that? Maybe walk us through just a little bit about what that means to participate.
Yep. Basically, for validators and for order flow providers, as I mentioned, no changes needed in terms of their infrastructure setup. For validators, they still the only thing they have to do is to literally change one line in their config to list the available relay API compatible endpoint that any of the nodes running in the tool network exposes. So currently, as I mentioned, we have one node that we are hosting ourselves, and so there's one endpoint available, but we are soon finish. We've already finished, but we're now testing it. We're testing the peer-to-peer capability. So, and soon we'll also open source the code, and basically everyone will be able to run these nodes. To run the node, the tool node itself, you should be able to have access to TE hardware. We are using TDX implementation, and it's available in all major providers. So I believe Azure, GCP, AWS, and basically all of the major ones, maybe IBM also. So these machines, VPSs, they're not much more. They're about the same in terms of pricing that are like normal VPSs. But for validators and order flow providers, it's not necessary to run any of these nodes. So if you're just a validator operator, the only thing you have to do is to just the procedure will be the same as if you will be listing the normal MV Boost relay, and you'll just have to find the endpoints that are available. And potentially, like if you'd like to host it yourself, we're very much excited because we are working towards making tool nodes light client first, which would make minimal requirements for running them extremely low, and so they would spin up like almost instantly, and they wouldn't require any kind of synchronization rather than like the light synchronization, etc. And so in the ideal world, all the validators would be able to run their own tool node and connect their validators to it directly to avoid to avoid reliance on any third-party providers. But yeah, like that's also probably like not very realistic to expect everyone to run it, even if that's a light client. So we would be working with major like RPC providers and infrastructure providers that have reputation among like validators and everyone in the Web3 space to run these nodes. So there should be like a lot of different endpoints available for validators to list.
Okay, let me see if I get this. I want to explore more questions on the economics, but just on the technical side point, I think, and it's sometimes a little confusing because of the repetitive words of like validators and nodes and so forth. But let me see if I understand this. That as a just a home staker, somebody who runs the Ethereum clients and maintains our nodes at home, we wouldn't necessarily run the TEE environment, right? We would just simply subscribe to yet another relay endpoint to get the pre-built blocks from TEEs in your network that have made those blocks and made the commitments in the 1 second block times. Is that correct or no?
Yep, right. So if you're just a normal staker that doesn't want to run anything inside TE, and like That's the default case for all the validators, right? The only thing you have to do is to check which endpoints are available from which like infrastructure providers with high uptime. Similarly, how you like pick existing MEV boost relays, and you will have to list one of them or like many of them in your configuration. And yeah, you will be just start receiving blocks, Ethereum blocks that are built by the network. Yeah, this is
And
the
then
case.
and then help me understand, because right now we're using um, Mev Boost, right? And it lists a number of relays in there that we can kind of select from and so forth. And so does participation in Tool or in NuConstruct here, does it do we have to exclude the other relays, or is it still in a competitive auction bid where we can subscribe and we just pick the highest bid?
Yeah, so economics wise, it's very, very interesting because what we are, the promise of Tool for validators in terms of rewards is that we are projecting to to produce almost a double of what MEV Boost can currently provide. So there are multiple effects that are that could be uniquely enabled by Tool that cannot be replicated by MEV Boost and like relays. Sorry, but and existing block builders. And so the strategy for us to launch the network is that we are first launching on the mainnet what we call a search network. It's basically it doesn't work with validators. It only receives private order flow from the network. Then what we do is that we aggregate all of the order flow, all of the private order flow on the Ethereum, because what we are able to provide to them is not only 1 second block times, which wouldn't be possible at the time, but we would be providing the way to monetize order flow without compromising on privacy, and doing that in a much more efficient way than traditional order flow auctions, for example. And that would be like, I think, 30 or 40% more, yielding 30 or 40% more rewards on like average for all of the order flow providers. And so this way we aggregate all of the order flow or most of the order flow to achieve the parity with the MEV Boost. And then we are able to track in real time when we can start building blocks that are marginally better than the blocks that MEV Boost could provide. And so then we are launching it with validators, basically. And when validators would be connecting, so this is answering your question. We are not compatible with other entities from the MEV Boost, just because like when you're building these 1 second blocks, you have and issue these execution confirmations to users, you are not able to like validators could not take another block because that would violate all of the confirmations that we as a network have, Tool as a network have issued to users. So basically, the game, like in terms of game theory, the game for the validator is to opt in for a long period of time based on the data of the performance data of the network that they see publicly, opt into it for a long time. They wouldn't be able to pick the best block just in time, so they wouldn't be able to pick the every best block, but on average, like on like any kind of time window, like a day, a week, a month, they would be receiving much more rewards compared to MEV Boost, basically. And so we think that this is sort of a scenario where validators are definitely they're incentivized to pick the second path and like receive much more rewards over the course of like a week, a month, or like a year. And that would be much more, like almost a double compared to like the situation when they can just like pick the best block just in time, but that wouldn't optimize for their long-term rewards.
Yeah, okay, thanks for explaining that. I actually see in kind of the chat channel here, Yorik's asking a question I'll just read to you. He says, what I'm hearing is that this, for the same reason, competes with pre-commits like ETH gas and doesn't run alongside them. Is that correct? So you've I think explained that we've got to pick, if we choose NuConstruct in the tool, we have to just select that as our single relay under Mev Boost, right? But what about commit boost? Is it compatible with that, or is it not compatible?
Yeah, currently it's not compatible, but technically it's possible to do an integration between these protocols. We just don't think it's a priority right now. What you can do as a validator is that you can list the tool endpoint among your existing relays. So this way you would be safe from, for example, theoretical like network downtimes or like downtimes of the nodes that you're trying to connect to. And in this case, you will be able to receive blocks from MEV Boost still. But also, if the tool is operational, then basically all of the blocks that you would be receiving from these endpoints, they would be overriding any kind of blocks that you would be receiving from other entities. With with proposer commitments, as I mentioned, because there are multiple protocols that are trying to do that, as you mentioned, like ETHGAS, and like there's like generally like a commit boost initiative. It is technically possible for us to have integration, but this has to be an integration between two protocols. And because there are many of these protocols that are emerged right now, and basically they don't have much of the market share, and they're like all in the testing phase. It would be too high effort for us to integrate all of them ahead of time. So basically, but at this point we are not compatible, and also these, like from the economic standpoint, the value that we're looking to provide to validators is much more than these protocols are going to provide with the MEV Boost. So for example, I was on one of the pre-conf panels, I think on last DEF CON in Bangkok, and what I heard is that the projections for these protocols is about to provide at most around 5% on top of the existing execution rewards. And so for us, it's almost a double, according to our research, that we are currently we have many research projects right now, and like we're planning to involve like very other large entities to help us and like to review it. But so far, we've been receiving like very positive feedback from like independent researchers and other teams that we're working with. That basically the data and like the effects that we are exploring, that they're basically correct.
If I can briefly comment on this, Ken?
Yeah. Just give me 1 second here, and I'd love to have you comment. But we're coming up to 8:30 on the hour here, and one of the things we do is we have a POAP code. So let me give the POAP code, and then York, I'll turn it right over to you to follow up on it. But for those that have the POAP home app on your phone, you can go ahead and open it up, and there's a way to claim a POAP using a secret word, I think it's called. And today's secret word for today's show is scaling, SCALING, scaling -ETH. And I've just got the little buzzer here going saying that it should be open. So scaling -ETH, ETH, and it should be able to claim for it. But
I mean, the POAP is important, and I'm getting cannot claim. Yikes. Anyway, I love it. I love that this is going to be competitive. I wanted to say that the ETHGAS guys are floating 40 basis points in full rollout if they get the amount they want. So that's 0.4% points, right? This is more than 10% lift over what people are earning now with about 3% APY. And I love that there's competition. That's good.
Yep. Any more questions?
I guess maybe we can talk just a little bit here. Oh, it says the mint window has ended on the POAP. So yeah, I got a feeling time zones might have struck again here on the POAP claim code. But hold on to that claim code. We'll see what Mav can do. He might have to issue these things manually afterwards. So, maybe Xerox Princess, can you talk to us just a little bit about? Okay, so do you have a set of instructions? Like if somebody, many of us run hoodie test nodes here, right? In there, it's very easy for us to spin them up using our kind of smart node stack that really helps install for those that aren't running them. But do you have a set or instructions or a walkthrough on how to configure it to start testing with Tool?
Yep. So we currently have an introduction document. I can share whenever you'd like me to share it. It's basically a one-pager that contains like a quick intro to the protocol, to implications for all of the participants, which kind of problems it solves, and also in the end it has the instructions for both RPC users and apps to change the RPC, and also for validator operators, the relay API compatible endpoint that they have to list. And later, when we test our peer-to-peer connectivity feature, this one pager would also contain an instruction to run your own tool node. If you would be interested in that.
Yeah, perfect. I think those would be excellent, very excellent resources for the community to know to set up about it. And one thing I might encourage NuConstruct to do is many of our node operators, like I say, pretty much exclusively use our kind of smart little smart node stack, and it's got an interface we call the TUI, the terminal user interface. It's kind of a very simple, the way I describe it is like a BIOS, like an old school BIOS thing where you just select your clients and configurations. And I would certainly encourage a tool to get a higher adoption of Rocket Pool node operators to just find a way to either add a sidecar or produce just a real quick instruction set on how to add the variable flag in using the TUI interface, and you'll find adoption would be probably a lot easier than actually going in and trying to adjust a YAML file or something like that for it. But yeah, I wanted to mention that, and I'm getting lots of messages here that the POAP code, I'll give that again here, scaling-ETH is now working thanks to Mav. So scaling-ETH, and if you get stuck, just hop into training, and it looks like DM Schifrin here, but scaling-ETH should be working right now to claim your POAP if you like. So you mentioned one of the things was some research I want to go back to that you said actually shows a higher return, and I too was participating a lot in kind of these pre-commitments and so forth, and it was a very evolving ecosystem. Have you had a chance to publish that research or make it available? We're all kind of interested about the possibility as node operators of earning more yield on block production. But it's been very hard to actually kind of find what the returns are or what the advantage is.
Yeah, so I can just give sort of a brief high-level explanation of the fact that we have some of the effects that we've been researching so far. And the research hasn't been published yet, and we're planning to do so, I think, very shortly. So on our side, it's complete. So we're now looking for input from the teams we are working with to maybe add something they're interested in, and like maybe so give us their feedback, and maybe we can like expand on some specific thing in every of these projects. So basically, one of the things is that Tool enables an open auction rather than a blind auction in MEV Boost. So in MEV Boost, because of these builders, and they are running their existing sort of proprietary opaque boxes, they're just taking all of the order flow from the searchers and they are not providing any kind of feedback to avoid leaking the information. But what is possible to do in Tool is, because all of the nodes, they trust each other and they're exchanging the commitments in the peer-to-peer network anyways, they can all see what every other node is going to include in the next subslot. And so this way, if you're an arbitrager, for example, you would be able to actively see bids of other arbitragers that are planning to include their transactions, and you will be able to rebid it with your bot. And this way, this is basically like what the situation looked like when there was a transaction pool, right? So there was sort of an open auction. Everyone was seeing transactions of other people in the transaction pool, and they were like rebidding them. And then we have replaced it with the blind auction, and the blind auction, by our research in this scenario, is much less competitive and is much less efficient. And so we expect up to, I think, 20% in median case value increase just from this, just from this aspect. Another thing is that all of the existing builders, they're running fragmented auctions. And also, not just builders, but order flow auctions, for example. They all have limited sets of builders. They take limited sets of transactions from a limited number of entities they're working with. Same as with order flow auctions on another level. They also have a limited set of searchers they're working with. And so all of these auctions on each level, they're very fragmented. And which makes impossible to do a number of things. For example, if we have many transactions, we couldn't arbitrage all of them. For example, because there's one order flow auction, they backrun. They enable backrunning for transactions atomically. There's another order flow auction. They're working with other searchers, and they're also backrunning their own transactions atomically. But for example, if we bundle transactions from multiple participants, allow arbitragers to work with this bundle of transactions from many participants, and then distribute the result. Basically, we will enable much more efficient value generation and like clearing all of these arbitrage opportunities. And so the same goes for traders. The same goes for solvers, etc. So combining order flow in a single unified auction that also has an open auction model is much more efficient than what we currently have. And so this also provides a huge increase as well. And another I think a third effect that worth mentioning is that Tool provides a complete disintermediation of the supply chain. So currently, relays are taking their small cut, builders are taking their small cut. With builders, it's a bit more opaque than with relays, because builders can receive fee from entities they're working with, not through the Coinbase reward, but it could be sent to another address, for example. And so this way it's being sort of taken away. And so currently what happens is that there's still an oligopoly on the block builder market and on the relay market, and they're not sharing all of the rewards, all of the execution rewards with the proposers. They are basically rebidding each other, and because there's no competition, because the order flow is centralized, basically, they're not bidding any more than their competitor. And before, they've been rebidding each other with very high margins, reaching sort of decent payout to the validator. But currently, what they do is that they do this auction with a very high frequency, and basically they're rebidding each other with very low margin, going by very low steps. And so they're now the payout that they are now doing sending to proposers is much lower than it was before in early MVBoost days. So this is a problem that we're going to solve. We are going to completely disintermediate the space, make it neutral and accessible for everyone, and that would increase competition in a way that couldn't be easily described. So yeah, these are effects that I think worth mentioning, and we've been exploring very deeply. And so yeah, we will be publishing, I think, the results of this research on all the major Ethereum research forums very soon.
Yeah, no, I'd love to look at it. It sounds absolutely fascinating. Let me just pause here and see if there's any questions from members in our community that will either want to come on and ask a question or post a question in the chat channel and the chit chat channel. I don't know the better way to say that, but the text one. But let me just pause and see if there's any questions from the community here. I'll give folks a second to think about it, but a couple more questions I have as I keep an eye on the channel to see if anybody has a question. But tell me now about kind of the next steps. What you're looking now for participants, especially Ethereum, validating validators to subscribe to the tool service, right, and test it out on the Hoodie testnet. But what are the eventual plans? Do you have any plans for mainnet or an ETA on that, or are you still in the kind of development phase in Hoodie?
Yeah, so we are planning to go to the mainnet relatively soon. So with the product that I already described, which we call Search Network, then it's the strategy for proposers would be very interesting. So we will have the initiative that we call Proposer Pre-Commitment Program. So we would be asking proposers to pre-commit, basically to list our endpoint before the network is launched, to signal their future participation, their interest. And at the same time as we will have the amount of order flow being received from this in the Search network, at the same time we will have the number of validators pre-committed growing, and that would be the signal for us that and for our users that would be able that would help us to drive even more order flow into the Search network, and the more order flow in Search network, the more we will be able to show the traction that we have that we could build blocks that are competitive with the MV Boost without actually delivering these blocks, by the way. So by participating in the pre-commitment program, validators are not risking anything. So this is a zero opportunity cost. They would list their relay, this relay endpoint to signal, but the rewards that they can potentially have from that is the retroactive airdrop that we're planning to have, because the tool will have a governance token that would be used primarily for two things. The first thing is to electing leaders for the consensus in the network. That provides sort of some of the advantages to sophisticated traders, for example, and they would be happy to use that opportunity to participate in the DAO. And another thing is the general governance, and one of the key parameters that will be governed is the mechanism of sharing order flow, MEV rewards between proposers and order flow providers. Because currently, what happens is that at the end of the block, their MEV rewards that they're being aggregated at the Coinbase address. And the way that they are currently shared is very opaque, and mostly this because these fees has to be shared between order flow providers who send the order flow to, for example, block builders, and the actual validators. And existing mechanisms, they're mostly using constant values. So for example, order flow auctions such as MV blocker, they're literally they're sharing some percentage of the fees that they've generated to proposers. And so this is not really market-driven mechanism. And obviously, like proposers, so validators, they're interested to receive as much rewards, MEV rewards as possible. And order flow providers are also interested to retain as much of order flow rewards as possible. And so this mechanism, they will basically have to be governed by the DAO to be market-driven. And we have to balance out the power that both of these sides have. And that's why we will be basically airdropping, distributing token between order flow providers that have been participating in the search network and sending us the order flow, and the validators that have participated in the pre-commitment program. And for order flow providers, they will be getting more fees while they're participating, because the value extraction, the MEV arbitrages, rewards that we will provide will be much more significant than they currently can receive, and that would also not compromise any privacy. And with all of the proposers, they're basically not losing anything in the worst case scenario and getting these basically DAO power to govern this crucial distribution mechanism after the network will be launched in the best case scenario.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you very much for that alpha. That sounds like an incentive process here. Is there anything that we haven't had a chance yet to talk about that you feel is important for node operators or participants in the Rocket Pool community to know about NuConstruct that we haven't had a chance to discuss yet?
I would ask to basically subscribe to the channels that we have, which is currently like our Twitter account. And because we will be publishing all of the updates there regarding the testnet, regarding our mainnet launch timeline, posting all of the research and documentation that we'll have later on. And yeah, we usually have the interesting strategy for posting the content. We're not doing it frequently, but rather we bundle all of the significant updates and post them all at once. And so yeah, that's why you really shouldn't miss out on that.
Yeah, perfect. I just followed you, NuConstruct on Twitter and X. And do you have any websites or a Discord server? Where can we go if we want to actually find out how to configure it and some instructions? Where's the best place to go?
So we have an official documentation website, which is docs.nuconstruct.xyz. But this currently it doesn't have an index. So basically, and the links that are shared that are not like the docs are only available by the direct link. And so I will share these docs that we have currently with you, so you feel free to post them into resources that you think would be appropriate. We don't really have Discord channel because we are directly communicating with all of the interested parties at this stage of development. So yeah. And the website is mostly serving the landing page purposes, and yeah, it definitely has to be updated and linked to the docs once we'll have it ready. But yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, no, but definitely the best point of information seems to be Twitter and X right now for you. And yeah, I get it. You're in the move fast stage, and a lot of those auxiliary support tools come up a little bit later here. So yeah, and then I guess as we kind of wrap up and start to conclude today's call, any plans on attending any of the larger Ethereum conferences or any seminars or webinars where people can learn more about the product?
Yep. So we're planning to go, our whole team is probably going to Argentina this year, and we'll be on all of these conferences that are going to be one after another in a row, I think from November 16th to November 23rd. Yeah, and like we are going to attend all of them, and would be happy to meet anyone who would be interested in chatting. And probably we will also prepare some of the talks, but that's yet to be determined. So yeah, but we'll definitely be there.
Yeah, perfect. I think a number of the folks from the community are planning on Dev Connect in Buenos Aires later this year in November, and I think a good portion of the team is going to be attending. And we're launching a big upgrade to our protocol, so I think some of them are in mission control and going to be kind of watching the launch, and others are going to be at Dev Connect there, so that'd be interesting. But yeah, please definitely keep in touch and post on your Twitter where you're going to be and if there's going to be any special side events. Sounds like a very interesting area, and it's got to be very exciting, I think, to be working in this, faster slot time pre-commitment area. It was definitely the top topic, I think, from the infrastructure side point at ETH Denver last year. It was very much in its nascent mode, but I'm hoping at Dev Connect there's been 6 months of development, or better part of 7 months of development, and we should really start to see this ecosystem start to mature.
Yep, definitely very excited about the space, because like I think Ethereum has been stagnating for some time. I think in around 2022, 2023, and that's why I think we decided to also make some kind of a change in the to support the ecosystem, rather than just be sort of a passive actor that adapts to all of the changes. And I think it's like making the life of all of the participants better, and making Ethereum as a whole more competitive to Altel ones, in terms of user experience, specifically in terms of transparency to all of the order flow providers and traders. I think like generally solving all of these centralization vectors, which is very, very much Ethereum aligned, I think. This is very exciting. I mean, because I think the Ethereum is now sort of entering its golden age, sort of, because I definitely can see like that all of the changes on the social layer and on the technical layer, like DVTs are getting traction, right? Like much more than they have been like in 2022, 2023, and like all of the tech that have been brewing for all of this time is now getting adoption. This is very, very exciting for me.
Yeah, no, I am the same opinion. It just seems like we were probably in a little bit of a lull, but right now there's just so much going on. It's hard to keep up on Twitter, and like you said, the ETH research and tremendous improvements and changes happening at the both the consensus and the execution layer, that it's very exciting. In fact, maybe too much going on at the moment to keep up. But yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure to spend the better part of an hour with you here, and very fascinating. I'm excited to take a look more and learn more about NuConstruct. And I wish you guys the best of luck here in your continued testnet and development. And looks like you're on to a very exciting launch ahead.
Thank you so much. It was a very great chat. Great chat. And yeah, I also had the pleasure to be with you today.
And for everyone else, keep an eye on the trading channel. That's our main community channel, where we all seem to spend a lot of time in and chat about Rocket Pool, Ethereum, and the rest of the world. And keep an eye on the events channel. Mav will be back with us with the next scheduled community call. Otherwise, I wish you guys all a great day, and I'll see you in trading.
Bye-bye.